Have you heard about Anchor? It is the easiest way to start a podcast. Let me explain. It is free and has creation tools to help you record and edit from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many more. Plus, you can earn money with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to get started. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to Get Ready for the Dress. I am your host, Coach J. I am so excited to have you here with me going through this journey. We're going to laugh, cry. We're going to share life experience, have fun in the process. We're going to build a powerful, beautiful sisterhood right here in this safe place where we can share all of life experience. Talk about any and everything, whatever dress you may be facing. It could be a marriage, divorce, single parent, loneliness, singleness. I am here as your host. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I did. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna go outside.
Okay, no problem.
And then, yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yay. Okay. Talk to me. How are you?
I am good, girl. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
I know, it's such a pretty day, right?
It is. I can't wait to get outside. I want to take a walk in my neighborhood, so I'm gonna do that.
I did. I walked around the trail. I got 10,000 steps.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I went with a friend of mine and we walked around and it was so pretty. Highly recommend you do that.
I am. I'm gonna get some of that in today. So,
Yay.
thank you for joining my podcast. It's called Get Ready for the Dress because I named it that because we're always getting ready for something. It just, as women, our work never stops. Life never stops for us. We always have something going on, right?
Great.
So I just
Always.
that
Yes.
we're getting ready for whatever dress it is. And I know you have a dress to tell us about. I know you before we get into your topic, give us your name, give us some background about you, okay?
Okay. So, my name is Brianna Smith. I was born in South Texas, in a town called Mission, which if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you would remember our famous coach, Tom Landry. And Mission is where he is from. So I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan and have always been since I grew up. And I went to school in San Antonio. I always wanted to be an engineer, and so I shortly after graduating, I left South Texas, and being an only child in a Hispanic family, that was hard to do because usually expectations are that you kind of hang around the home, but thankfully my family home, my mom was always very big on education and the importance of, following your passion and your dreams. And so I went off to school in San Antonio and got my degree in electrical engineering. Worked for about a year as an engineer, and then was introduced to an area of law that I never imagined. I never imagined going to law school, but was introduced into patent law and found out that to be a patent attorney, you had to have a science background. So I decided I'd pursue law school and become a patent attorney. And that led me from San Antonio to Dallas for my first job. And so that's what got me to the North Texas area. And today I am a senior patent attorney at Microsoft. And I'm also very passionate about public service. And so I am a city council member in the city of Coppell. What else can I
Yay.
tell you about me?
That's good, girl. That's good. So, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Give us so your story you want to share with us is go right into it.
Yeah, and so, I mean, one of the things when people always ask me about myself, like if I gave my 30 seconds, elevator speech. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mother of two beautiful kids. I'm a public servant. I'm a electrical engineer. I'm a lawyer. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. But I am also a breast cancer survivor,
Right.
and that's kind of what takes me into my story. So I, you know, being 7 years ago, May 2013, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I don't have a family history of it. Never imagined having any type of cancer. Always felt like I was healthy. I worked
Mm-hmm.
out. I ate healthy, and the only kind of cancer that ever was in my family was thyroid cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they always say that you're gonna never have a cancer, that's the one to have. And um, so just never imagined having it. And one day came home from working out, sat on the couch to work and found a lump in my breast. And,
Mm.
and then 3 days later was told I had one of the most aggressive types of breast cancer, that you could have, which is triple negative. And
Wow.
that was really a in my life because again just never imagined having that. And as women we feel um, that we need to be strong for
Right.
everybody. We feel
Right.
like we need to be the ones that are taking care of everybody. We need to be the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are scheduling everything, and we put so much pressure on ourselves
Right.
to just be that strong person, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, and we feel like even on our worst days, we have to put our smile on our face. We have to get up, get
Mm-hmm.
dressed, and smile.
Right.
and
Mm-mm.
that's hard to do all the time. And we have to give ourselves permission to actually say it's okay to have a
Mm-hmm.
bad day. And so, I will admit, like, I remember after I was told I had breast cancer, I remember fact, I at the time had just been asked to chair the board of a hospital, and and ironically, they were all the doctors who had run my tests, and so they actually knew my diagnosis, and I had just been given that diagnosis that afternoon, and so I drive and I get there, and they're like, why are you?" And I'm like, well, where else would I be? I've got things to do, and I got to run a
Right.
meeting, and um and so I remember running the meeting and leaving and pulling off to the side of the road and just crying and thinking,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I have cancer. I need to
Right.
process that. What does that mean? um
Right.
and then getting into that mode of, I remember it took several weeks to get into a breast cancer surgeon and oncologist appointments, and remember them saying this could take, about a year, from start to finish with just the type of treatment that you need and the surgeries you're going to have. And I'm thinking, I don't have time. Like,
Right. Yeah.
like a year is a long time.
Right. Right.
And so, and the reality is, from start to finish, for me it actually took 3 years. I went through chemotherapy and had 7 surgeries, from start to finish, just because of complications along the way, and
Mm.
realizing that along the way I was always trying to shortcut the process, um,
Oh.
and not really taking care of myself. And when I finally was like, I need to rest, I need to take care of myself. If I don't take
Mm-hmm.
care of myself, I can't be there for everybody else.
Right.
Then when that finally set in, and I also gave myself the time to mourn, um,
Mm.
and really process everything, then things started to fall into place. And
Okay.
so I think for me, it was just, from that experience, it was learning to you know, to have grace, to
Mm-hmm.
give myself permission to really, um, to mourn, right? And just to have
Right.
that it was okay to have a bad day, right?
Yep.
And to just really give myself permission to also accept help from other people. And
That's
and
the hardest thing for us.
oh, it was so hard
That's
for me.
so
I remember people
hard.
going, "Oh, can we bring meals, or can we, take care of your kids, or can we?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm fine. I'm good." To ask for help was one of the hardest things I had to learn, and I think it was finally my son who, when I was diagnosed, he was 7. Now he's 15, and when he was like, "Mom, like you've always told me, it takes a village. Why don't
That's
you let
good.
people, yeah, why don't you just let people help you?"
Mm-hmm. What happened?
Why is it, it just, why is it? It's
Mm-hmm.
just, for us to just, to basically put our pride aside and
Mm-hmm.
say, you know what, it's okay, to ask for help.
Right.
Um, and so I would have to say that's a really big thing for me. I had shared with you that I'm a contributing author in a book
Mm-hmm.
called Connect: How to Love and Accept Yourself After Divorce. Um, and really, where I thought my story would start and end with cancer, and that was one of those things that it's like, okay, this will happen, and then I'll kind of move on with my
Mm-hmm.
life. Didn't realize that that was only the beginning of one of many chapters in my life.
Right.
Um,
Because you were going through your divorce while you were going through the 3-year process of healing, right?
yes. So, everybody, and here's the other thing is, right, so everybody deals with traumatic situations differently. For us, our family, the traumatic was going through cancer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, and it can be cancer, it can be a major illness, it could even be a loss of
Mm-hmm.
a job, of a family member. But when we go through things, traumatic situations in our life, everybody deals with them differently. And
Right.
my like to give you an example, I'm an only child, and so ironically, my mom's a certified nurse practitioner, and
Mm-hmm.
she had decided to retire because my grandfather had passed away a few years before. My grandmother was getting older. She's like, you know what, I just need to take some time and spend it with my mom. I'm the oldest of
Mm-hmm.
7 children, and it's just time for me to retire and spend more time with my grandkids, right?
Right.
And so, blessing in disguise that she had retired, because as soon as I was diagnosed with cancer, she got in her car and of, okay, what is it that I need to do to just get through this, and how do I survive this for my children, and
Mm-hmm.
what's the quickest way that I can get to normal again, and I say quote
Right.
unquote normal because I didn't know that my normal would obviously be something different. And then in the midst
Right.
of that was that, for my husband, I started to notice that, um, at the time, he just really could not handle it. And so, from not wanting to be at the hospital, and again, I had 7 surgeries, um, going to chemo, but really not being present, and
Mm-hmm.
and and really, and then we get home from chemo, and he would, say I've got to go to work or I've got to go to the gym, and really finding ways to just not really be around.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, it was, as I learned later, it was the fear that I was going to die, and
Mm-hmm.
really started to separate himself very early on, um, from myself and from the family. And so in the midst of going through, cancer and all the different surgeries and treatment, I remember that, shortly after treatments were over, I'm going through surgery. Well, then for me, at the time, let's see, I'm now 47. At the time, I was in my early 40s, and then I was all of a sudden going through early menopause. And so then on top of all the things you're going through, right? Like you've got chemo brain, you can't remember things, you don't feel good about yourself. I had a double mastectomy, so all of a sudden I've lost something very important to women. I've lost my breasts. They've been rebuilt, but it just there's so many things that were different. Like all of a sudden, I just didn't even know who I was. I felt like I was a person in a foreign body, and then all you want is though to know that you're loved and accepted, and your spouse is looking at you like they don't even know who you are. And I remember thinking, I just want things to go back to normal. What does that look like, and how do we get there? And we struggled with the fact that, like, then there was the lack of communication, the lack of intimacy, the lack of friendship, and those are all things that are so important in a relationship. And so, my advice to people is when you're going through really difficult times is finding ways that you can have those conversations or find somebody that you can talk to really, um, to really process what it is that's going on and what does that mean. And instead of finding a way out, because if you don't deal with it, right, it only gets worse. And that's what happened, unfortunately, to us. Is it got to a point where, I started to go through menopause. All of a sudden, like for me, it was just a very difficult experience with everything going on. And so I, ironically, at the time, found a cancer camp, a camp for cancer survivors or people going through cancer. And they were different parts of their journey. And I remember that it was mostly for people under 40. And I think at the time I was, over 40, obviously. And they had decided to extend their camps to people over 40. And they had one camp in Colorado. And I found it on Facebook and literally applied and got a call the next day saying we have one spot open and you'd have to leave on Saturday. And I think this was like a Tuesday. And they're like, but it's all paid for. And I was like, I remember, I know. And I was like, this is a God thing, right? These are my answered prayer. I need to go be around people that can understand what I'm going through, because I need to talk through some things. And then hopefully I can come back and be there for my spouse and figure out how we can get through this. And so, the program is called First Descents, and I will tell you that it saved me personally, because we went off to Colorado. There was 15 of us, and it's normally co-ed, but ironically this time it was all women. And and all those women became some of my absolute best friends that I still keep in touch with. They're all over the U.S. And what I loved about it was that it was about facing your fear in a way that I didn't imagine. So their camps were outdoor activities, and this particular camp was rock climbing, and I had never rock climbed in my life. And what I loved about it was we all learned how to rock climb together. We learned to lean on each other, and we learned to face our fears, which was going up some huge mountains in Colorado and rock climbing, and realizing that we could overcome our fears, we could come out at the top, that we were stronger than we imagined or we gave ourselves credit. And
you had a village.
we had a village, exactly. We could do it together, even with people that we didn't know. And what was interesting was that we didn't all sit around and talk about our cancer. We didn't really talk about, like, it wasn't about we're victims, poor us, we're going through this. It was
Right.
just being there for each other, and it really made me a stronger person. And when I came back from that camp, I was truly changed, because then I realized that if I had a positive mindset, if I leaned on my village, and if I just, had faith, that we could
Hmm.
overcome this, then we could get to the other side. And
Right.
and so I came back from that camp and was just really invigorated and excited. But by then I had already I came to realize I came back, and my husband at the time asked me for a divorce, that literally like 2 days later. And
Wow.
and I came to realize that 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 was okay. I was going to People deal with things differently. That
Hmm.
throughout this process, in fact, there was going to be people that remained in my life. There was going to be people that
Hmm.
didn't. Um,
Right.
Ironically, there was people who didn't want to be around me because I had cancer, and you know what? That's okay. Then those are the people that don't need to be part of my circle.
Right. Amen.
That's right. And
Mm.
so I really learned that it was almost like, how could I say this? You start like trimming fat, right? Like that
Hmm.
extra weight.
Yeah.
You start trimming the extra weight out of your life and
Yep.
surrounding yourself with the people that really matter, and those people that are
Yep.
really truly your village.
Hmm. Exactly.
And so I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. It's interesting because I'll just kind of um, I'm looking at the book, and the
Uh-huh.
chapter that I wrote, because my son, when I wrote this book, or this chapter in this book that I was asked to write about, not realizing
Hmm.
um, that it was really that while I was being asked to write about it, there's 10 contributing authors. We were asked to write about
Uh-huh.
it to help other people going through divorce. And especially because
Hmm.
there are several people, or there, how can I say this? The divorce rate for people going through cancer is high. And it's usually when the woman is going through cancer versus when the man is going through cancer. And it's because of how we deal with things, right? Women are normally
Right.
caregivers, per se, in that
Hmm.
role. And there's two of us that wrote about going through divorce while going through cancer, and one of them is the other
Wow.
woman is one of my best friends who I met on this cancer camp. But what I didn't realize too
Oh,
was how much I needed to put pen to paper, because it was very healing for me.
that's awesome.
And the other thing was that my son, who is an amazing writer himself, also was, he was like, I really want to help you write this book because we need to point out the importance of, you know, like what you learn from this from a positive perspective, right?
Uh-huh.
And he was the one that was like, you know, um, one of the things he talked about was, because I was like, what do you feel like I learned through this? And he goes,
Yeah.
I feel like you learned how to love yourself.
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, and I think that's so important. And so it's, and I'll read you this little excerpt. It says, and the
Yeah.
part says, love yourself. It says, divorce lowered my self-confidence and my self-esteem because I allowed it to do so. While I had also heard, quote unquote, if you look good, you feel good, there were many days I could not bring myself to put on anything other than jeans, a t-shirt, and a baseball cap. One day, however, I had to put some effort into my attire for a meeting with my boss. I stepped out of my room and was greeted by numerous compliments from my two sweet kids. I looked at myself in the mirror and told myself I loved me. It was then that I realized
Mm.
only I had control of me, how I felt, and how I looked. From that day forward, I made every effort to look good and feel good. More importantly, it taught me that you must love you for who you are. Always remember to love
Hmm.
yourself inside and out. You are beautiful.
That is
And
that's
so
good.
that was really important for me. There were other things like staying positive, staying connected,
Hmm.
being strong in my faith, and
Hmm.
and and just leaning on my friends and my family, and realizing that if if the person I was with couldn't truly be with me through sickness and in health,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the person that I needed to be with. And that, if I was meant to find love at a later time, I would.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And
Yes.
so that's I guess the happy ending of the story is not only that I'm cancer free now 7 years later, but that I also, in 2016, met my current husband, and he, I remember the first thing I said to him was, "I just want you to know, I went through cancer. I had breast cancer. I lost my breast, and I
Yeah.
don't feel good about myself." And he was like, "Oh my God, you're beautiful. You're beautiful inside and out, and that's what matters." And a year and a half later, we got married, and we lived happily ever after. So
That's what you had to give him. You had to prep him up front. I want you to know, so you won't be surprised. You had to give him that prep up front, huh?
yes, I did. And so, because I wanted him to know that,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh my gosh, like we all have scars." And somebody, I remember him saying that. He
Yeah.
goes, "We all have scars of inside and out." And it's okay, because it's not just the outside. That's what we look at in a person if you truly love them. And so um and so things worked out. And I think a lot of it is just, like I talked about, was the remaining positive and the loving me for who I am, and
Right.
accepting myself, and not allowing cancer to define me, or divorce to define me, because I will admit
Right.
it was really difficult. You worry, what will people say? What will people think?
Yep.
Will I be judged? Um,
I've been there, done that.
right? And it's so hard,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so afraid of what other people will think. And as a
Mm-hmm.
public servant in a small city, I was so afraid to
Mm-hmm.
step out. I was afraid to lose my hair while going through cancer, because I didn't want people to see me and look at me and feel bad for me. When I was going through a divorce, I didn't want to go to any events by myself. I was afraid of people asking me.
Or
And
being
yes.
judged, because I was fearful of being judged. But because I've been through more than one divorce, just put it
Yep.
like that. But it was always afraid of what people gonna think, how they gonna judge me. Oh, they're gonna say, oh, what happened, what you do,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And but who cares, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's where we at today. That's where we
And
at
that's where we're
today.
at
Who
today. And
cares?
who cares? And that's exactly right. And it was one of those things too. Like, when I started dating, I was like, "Oh my gosh, people are gonna think that I'm
Hmm.
the one that, like, I'm the one
Hmm.
that, left, or whatever it may be." And like, it was really him, right? Whatever it may be. And
Right.
what are people gonna think? And you're right. You have to get to that moment of saying, "Who cares?" Because it's not about them. It's about you. And if we
Mm-hmm.
constantly worry about what other people think, we will make ourselves sick. And when we do that, we
Yep.
stress out, we make ourselves sick. And then I'm like, I can't afford that. My cancer will come back. Like, positive thinking, who cares? And you know what? If people
Right.
want to judge me, then those people don't need to be my friends, don't need to be part of my circle. And, they need to worry about their own lives.
I was about to say, if they judging you, that's why I was about to say, we can't look in their backyard. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We know they got stuff going on. We just don't know. So I'm with you. But what I did, I mean, I'm with you. 'Cause the first time I was dead on with you. I was like, oh my gosh, what people gonna think? Just heartbroken, and it took my parents to will me back.
Hmm.
But the last time, my last divorce, I was like, opportunity. Yes.
You're like, I got
This
this
is
down.
opportunity for me. Yes, girl. It was yes, honey. That's a whole nother story. It was an opportunity for me to get me back, because a lot of times we get married and we lose ourselves.
Yes.
We lose ourselves, so we don't
Yes.
never be our authentic self,
Yes.
because we're taking on the relationship. We're trying to be everything to this person and the kids, and then we lose ourselves. So yes, it was an opportunity for me to find myself again and to be who I'm truly is. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes. And that's so
So,
key. It's like, can you truly be your authentic self? Like, I think that's
mhm,
like, are you like who, like, do you know who you are? And, it's
right.
one of those things that, like, when I remembered when, so for me, in the midst of all this, it was really that I had learned that he was seeing somebody else. And,
Mhm,
and so I remember asking him to leave. And then I became the bad guy, right? It was like, you threw
mhm,
me out. Um, and then for like 8 months, almost a year, up until the divorce was final, I actually was literally begging him back. And I was like, I want him
mhm.
to choose me. I want him to choose me,
Yeah,
right? Not the other person. And
right.
so and what I did was I lost myself. And little did I know that
Mhm,
I didn't know who I was the entire marriage and didn't realize that. And it took going through something so traumatic as cancer and literally being in the hospital and thinking, why is it that like my spouse isn't here next to me? Like I just my
mhm.
longest surgery was 13 and a half hours. And I was in
Wow.
ICU for 5 days. And
Wow.
not once did he stay with me the night. And I was like, and I remember fighting for that whole year, and my mom saying to me like, look, I know you love him and I'm not trying to get in the middle of all this, but
Right.
like think through, was he really there for you when you needed him the most? What is it that you're wanting? And I think more than anything, I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to
Yeah.
be I wanted to be that person's number one priority, and not realizing that I had lost who I truly was.
It was
And
a competition where you was competing.
yes, and I needed
Mhm,
that, and and so that was a hard lesson to learn,
mhm,
and one where I let my guard down. And so once all that happened, really going, you know what? Like now I'm able to just be me. And
mhm,
I can be my authentic self, and I can do what makes
mhm.
me happy. And I realized that at the time I didn't even know what made me happy because I was so busy trying to please him or
Yep.
others, and
Yep.
we get lost so many times
Mhm.
in who we truly are. And that authentic self is so key. We talk about that even at work, of like, are you bringing your authentic self to work? Who are you truly?
Right, exactly. Because there's so many masses, but the thing is, back to your story. I believe God was probably showing you and giving you an out. Because I honestly believe God gave me an out for my divorce.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed for, I know, 3 years, but I wouldn't walk away until he showed me. And I mean, I had some of this, I didn't go through cancer or anything, but I had some illness just because of stress. And my ex-husband didn't show up for it either. But God showed me. So when I sat back and reflect and looked over everything, I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, you were showing me, you were giving me my out.
Mm-hmm.
You were giving me my out because he broke every protocol that you said his role was, as a husband. He basically abandoned me mentally. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
when you absolutely needed him most.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, that's grounds for divorce right there. So as I looked over everything, I was like, oh my gosh, God gave me so many signs. So that gave me comfort, to leave. I mean, not leave, I left, but to be okay with the divorce. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because
right.
I grieved in the process. I grieved for years. So when I walked away, there was no grieving process for me. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was just like,
It was a
okay, because I
liberation.
I looked at, yes, I looked at every sign. I was like, God gave me, I prayed and God was showing me. I was showing me, you have to be willing to look at it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. And I
So
truly
I
believe
did
that.
it.
Like, and I think that for me, it was going on for years. Like, as I go back and I look at, I mean, I was in a 16-year marriage. And as I go
Hmm.
back and I look through different phases in my life of when I needed him most,
Hmm.
and realizing that he wasn't by my side and he wasn't there, and I always made excuses. And I just and it was one of those things that, like, I didn't want to leave, or I didn't want it to end for the sake of the kids. I grew up in a divorced, family. He had come from a divorced family, and it was like, you know what, we'll just
Mm-hmm.
kind of make this work. And yet, like, we should never lose ourselves in that situation, right? Because we're not, I mean,
Right.
our kids are then not seeing a loving relationship. And then they, when they grow up, they don't know what a loving relationship truly looks like. And so
Right.
I was constantly making excuses of why I stuck around, and I had truly just lost myself. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. I mean, God, like I always say, He works in mysterious ways, but sometimes, like, it's right in front of you, and we ignore the
Mm-hmm.
signs. And here
Right.
it was one of those things. Like, I'd come home from chemotherapy, and I'd be feeling sick, and He's like, "I'm going to work." And so my mom was taking care of the kids, was taking care of me,
Right.
was, people would come over and bring dinner. She was making sure that she was there to say hello to them. And I was like, and He's at work. Like, what is wrong with this picture? And
Right.
so, and I was just constantly making excuses like, well, He's just not handling it, whatever it may be. And, and you know, and it was one of those things too that he blamed God for me having cancer. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, first of all, you don't have it, I have it. And secondly, I don't blame God. Like, I truly
Right.
believe that I have cancer for a reason. There is a calling for me. And I've always seen it as something
Yes.
positive. Like, I fought it, I survived it, I grew in my faith, and
Mm-hmm.
God never abandoned me during any of it. And I believe that I'm here to help others going through their cancer journey.
Right.
That's for me. And when I started to see him losing his faith over it, I
Yes.
was like,
Yeah.
you are someone who's lost, and I can't, my job
Mm-hmm.
is not to save you.
Right, exactly. And when he started losing his faith on around it, that means he walked away from God. So it was easy for him
Yep.
to treat you the way he treated you because he had walked away from God.
Absolutely. And where I used to tell the kids, I'm like, I don't care how I feel, but like every Sunday we will come to church. And I remember that,
Hmm.
we would, sit in the back because I had to social distance from people, which
Right,
ironically we're doing
right,
now.
right.
But we always went, and I used to always tell the kids, like, it's about prayer. Like, I know God is with
Hmm.
us. He will get us through this, and I have faith. And we have to continue to have faith. Like, I just truly believe that it's not just about being physically healthy, but it's about,
Right,
it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's social, it's spiritual. There's all these
right.
components that make you whole, and the spiritual piece is just as important as any other of those facets.
Exactly. That is so
So when
true.
when he started to lose that, I realized that I was fighting the wrong battle, which was
That's good.
that and that was not the battle I needed to be fighting. And you know what? I am now in just such a better place. Um
Hmm.
and and I know that it all has happened for a reason. I can say, like, I'm truly blessed. God has taken such great care of us, and we are
Hmm.
good, and we are truly happy. And um, I can't say that for the other person on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that's not even for your worry, girl, because life is so good for you. God has healed you,
Amen.
He has restored you, and you know what, you are in such a good place that you can't worry about that. You know what I
No,
mean?
no, no. My job is to take care of myself, my family, my children, but me
Hmm.
more, right? Like, you, like, that's the other thing, right? We forget
Right,
to take care of ourselves, and that's really key. When we talk about self-care, that is so important. And so
right.
that's something truly to focus on. But yeah, and you can totally relate. You
Oh,
have
exactly.
walked that path.
Girl, I've walked it more than once, but it's been a good journey for me because the life you have now, you wouldn't have had it with your ex,
Mm-mm.
not at all.
Nope.
The life I have now, I couldn't have had it with my ex. So that's why where you are, and that's why I'm where I'm at, and that's why God showed us because this is the life he wants us to have. We can be our true self. We can worship and praise him truly in our true self. We can give him glory in our true self because we're standing truly in our truth, in ourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I couldn't have done that with my ex because I couldn't be who I am.
Right. Because you couldn't be your authentic
So
self.
no, I had to put on a mask. Same for you, because I lost myself. So the thing is, that's why I truly believe, the signs were there for you and myself. So that's why God, people say God is not, he don't believe in divorce. He doesn't, but he will give you where the Bible says what you can get a divorce from. It says
Yep.
adultery, abandonment, and people think abandonment means walking out the door. No, abandonment is a mental and a physical.
Absolutely. If they're not there for you in your
And a
time of need,
spiritual.
that is abandonment. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's abandonment and
absolutely.
rejection, and nobody should have to go through that because that's a type of abuse. That is an emotional
Oh
abuse, and
yeah.
that's what I realized that I was going through was this emotional abuse, and it's like that's not okay.
Mm-mm.
And again, it took me going through all of this to look back and go, wow, I had no idea that that's what I was really going through. I really was in denial, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's so liberating to be on the other side, and I think it's so important that
Mm-hmm.
people like take a step back and really think like, are you truly happy? Do you know who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And where are you, like, faith check, where are you with your faith? Do you truly believe you are
Right.
where you're supposed to be, or have you ignored all the signs? um,
Exactly.
because my mom used to always tell me, like, God will never give you more than you can handle,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always there for you. And so are you truly putting everything in his hands to help you and guide you?
That's
That is
good.
so important. um,
Mm-hmm.
you know and so anyway, I again, I've learned a lot about myself, and just really took time to, I don't know, just really take a self inventory on who I was and where I wanted to be going forward. And then I wanted to be a great example for my children because they're watching,
Mm-hmm. Right.
also. And I think I started to realize that staying in a bad marriage wasn't the right thing for them either. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to,
Exactly.
to see that. And what was so interesting, because you talked about how, people, criticize or judge about divorce. Like, I grew up Catholic. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been a practicing Catholic. And I was, I mean, my mom divorced, and I remember that my grandparents kind of treated her, I couldn't believe that she was getting a divorce, but she was in a bad
Right.
marriage, and she's like, I can't continue. And if you want to, if you want to judge me, that's on you. And so she was
Right.
very supportive when I was ready to get a divorce. Um, and I just
Mm-hmm.
sat there and I thought, you know what? I mean, God would not want me to stay in a bad marriage where I'm going through mental, emotional abuse.
Right.
That's not what He wants for us,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know?
Nope, not at all. And the glory is your mom been through it, so she was able to support you and help you through it. And not only that, she saw it. She saw
She saw
signs
it.
way before
Yep,
you.
absolutely. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
started to talk about it, and I was like, oh, wow, it's not that I missed it, but I was just in denial, and I never wanted to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, for the longest time, I wouldn't even go home to see my family because I didn't want them to judge me, or I didn't want to hear their criticisms. My ex-husband is and always has been very charming to others. It's behind the doors where he's
Mm-hmm.
just a different person. And so people were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you got divorced. Like, he seems like such a nice guy, and he's very charming." And it's like, and it wasn't about me
Mm-hmm.
defending myself or talking bad about him, because that doesn't do any good. It's that I made a
Right.
decision. He wasn't good for me. He wasn't good for my family. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. I had lost myself, and I needed to move on. And you know And it was between me and God. It was really nobody else's business.
And that's the way to do
Yep.
it. That's why I said it doesn't matter what people think because God know what you've been through,
Mm-hmm.
and the relationship you have with him that's what matters. And that's what I had to learn. What matters is the relationship I had with him. And as long as I'm healed enough, I'm healing myself so I can love. I
Exactly.
can love and be loved and love me first, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. We have to love me first, and that's what I had forgotten to do. I
Mhm.
always put myself last. I always wanted
Mm-mm.
to
Mm.
make sure everybody else was taken care of, and it wasn't about me, you know.
Mhm.
So
Exactly. And you have to.
I don't know. I learned a lot through this process. I talk about it in my chapter. I'm working on another book about, just my cancer journey. But really focusing on the physical, the nutrition, the mental, emotional, social,
Yes.
and spiritual piece to it. Um, and just talking about that it's not just about surviving, but really learning to thrive and
Yes.
to love yourself, to surround yourself with people that love you for who you are authentically,
Mhm.
um
Yep.
and and then to always just to remember to live in the I call it the precious present, right? And just like the
Mhm.
moment, because so many times, like,
Right.
we're not guaranteed anything other than the moment we're in right now.
Exactly. Amen
Yeah.
to that.
And
Yes.
so that's, so again, it's just been a huge learning experience. I'll admit that, there's days that I retreat back to kind of losing myself sometimes. And it's just because we're surrounded
Mhm.
by so much negativity,
Yep.
or issues going on in the
Mhm.
world. And so it's so important to just take the time
Stay
to,
present.
to
Stay
stay
present.
present and self-care
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
lean on your village and your
Yep.
faith.
And keep that negative out. That negative out, because that negative is what gets you to go backwards.
Exactly. Yes. And so many times, right? They always say, right, when you're closest to God and you're in that positive moment is when Satan comes and tries to attack. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
making sure that you're conscious of that, you know, and just
Yep.
constantly
Exactly.
trying to be in the present positive moment.
That's right. So, what's the name of the new book?
You know what? I actually do not have a title for my new book. I keep being asked for a title and for a
Mhm.
like a cover. And so I
Uh-huh.
I don't really know. What's interesting is, like, for this
Okay.
particular book, my 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 chapter is called "All I Need Is an Unsweetened Green Iced Tea." So I
Oh,
drink a venti iced green tea unsweetened with light ice from Starbucks every single day. It's a very expensive habit, but
okay.
it's what I do.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when my husband is at goes to work to downtown Fort Worth on his way home, every single day he brings
Mhm.
me a green tea. Lately he's been working from home, but he makes it a point
Oh,
to go out and get me a green tea. And which is,
oh.
like, it's funny because we always talk about, like, gosh, think of how much we could save because it's like 3.15,
Mhm.
and I'm like, you don't have to
Oh
get
my
me
God.
one, but that's kind of like our little, I don't know, that's like my little
Yeah.
thing that I have. That's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
And so I and that's what I drank when I was going through cancer. Was I drank the
Mhm.
green iced tea, and I always thought it was just, I always thought of it as something that was good for me as an antioxidant. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I would like to somehow um find a way to kind of play off of that, where it's still
Oh, we
about
can
my green tea and
easily.
being healthy, and not necessarily, like, I'm not wanting it's not really about, it's my cancer journey, but not it's
Yeah.
also about the six pillars of just living a healthy lifestyle. And
Yes.
so all that to say is I'm still trying to figure out the title, but I'm hoping that it'll be
Okay.
out in early 2021. And if anybody has any ideas for a title, please let me know. But it,
Okay, I'm
yeah, because
thinking,
it
yeah.
will be again about my cancer journey. It will talk about my divorce, but it really will focus on what I did then and what I'm doing now to continue to live a healthy lifestyle that's not just about what we eat and drink and then our workout routine,
Okay,
but making sure that
right.
we're mentally and emotionally, socially and spiritually aligned, and all
Mm-hmm.
those pieces fit in, because you can be extremely healthy, you can work out every single day and
Mm-hmm.
and eat healthy, but if you are depressed or anxious or sad, then mentally you're
Mm-hmm.
not in a good place. If you don't
Right.
have the right people that you surround yourself with, then socially you are not in a good place. And if you are not in a good place where you can really focus and lean on your faith and know that we are not in control, He is, and God is there to help us and guide
Mm-hmm.
us and provide for us, then spiritually you are not, in a healthy place. So
Right.
that for me is my focus, is the six pillars of just being a well-rounded, healthy individual. So
Girl, I can't
that's
wait
what
for that to come out.
I'm
I
doing.
can't wait. I can't wait. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with on
Absolutely.
that
Yes,
end.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because you and I have connected in a whole different level other than just
Yeah.
healthy shakes and healthy teas, which are amazing, by the
Yes.
way. But just really what we believe in and where we're at and what we do, and I think that I'd love to do that. I'd love to connect with you.
Okay, definitely, girl. Definitely. Thank you for doing this with me. I'm so glad you said yes.
Absolutely. And if there's ever anything else I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. And once I have a new book, I would love to come back on and talk about that.
Oh, yes. Yes, you would definitely be back on anytime. And I'm going to tag you when I release it on
Okay,
tomorrow, okay? On Facebook.
perfect.
So you can share it with your friends. Thanks again for coming and
Absolutely.
joining me on my
Have a
podcast. I'm going to be releasing this
have a
tomorrow.
wonderful day. Enjoy the beautiful weather.
I
And
will. You do
I
the
will
same.
see
Kiss
you
those
this week
kids for
soon.
me. Yes, and say hello to mom and the babies. Well, they
Yeah, I
the
know.
big kids.
I will. I will. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
This was such a great interview. One thing we need to know from this interview is that we're powerful, we're beautiful, and we are loved. Ladies, we have to love ourselves through every trial, every pain, every obstacle. We have to put ourselves first and love ourselves. We have so much to offer our loved ones in this world. You are beautiful. You are strong. And everything we go through, it has to go through God's hands. God already know the trial and the obstacles we're going to face. So trust God and lean on Him. And if you need a support group, feel free to reach out to Coach J through my podcast, and I will connect you with a support group. Continue listening. Thank you for listening to Get Ready for the Dress.